Welcome back with the start of another curious and interesting Japanese anime monster. The story revolves around Kenzo Tenma, a Japanese surgeon living in Düsseldorf, Germany whose life enters turmoil after getting himself involved with Johan Liebert, one of his former patients, who is revealed to be a dangerous serial killer. After successfully completing a 6-hour-long cerebral aneurysm surgery, Dr. Kenzo Tenma comes out of the operation theater with his surgical team. The team members appreciate Dr. Tenma's talent and brilliance. After he left, a woman and a little boy begin to cry. The next day morning in Düsseldorf, Germany, Dr. Tenma is asleep. While he is sleeping, his fiancée Eva Heinemann, the daughter of the hospital director of Isler Memorial Hospital where Dr. Tenma works, comes and wakes him up. After a while, the news is broadcasted on TV about Mr. and Mrs. Liebert and their 2 children. After that, another news is broadcasted as Dr. Heinemann appears and talks about the success of the opera singer Rosenbacher's surgery that Dr. Tenma was involved in the last night. And he assures that he will sing again soon. Eva then praises Dr. Tenma, telling him that he is the one who has boosted the reputation of the hospital. He then tells her that he is the one who is grateful to her father for that he is able to work in Germany. Eva then says that if he sticks with her father, his future is guaranteed, and once her father becomes the chairman of the board, Tenma will become the chief of surgery and then the chief director. A surgery is being done, and after it is finished, Dr. Tenma and Dr. Becker come out. Dr. Becker admires Dr. Tenma's talent and tells him that he is the favorite of the hospital director and the chief surgery and has taken the heart of the director's daughter. He further tells Dr. Tenma that the hospital is ruled by politics and he is being used by the director. Before he departs, Dr. Becker tells Dr. Tenma not to forget him if he becomes successful. After finishing the chat with Dr. Becker, Dr. Tenma encounters a woman and a little boy. The woman asks Dr. Tenma if he is Dr. Tenma, and after confirming it, she begins to scream, telling him to bring her husband back. She then tells him that she is the wife of that opera singer whose surgery was done by Dr. Tenma, but now her husband is no more, and says that he should be responsible for his death. Dr. Tenma then recalls how he was transferred to another duty under an order from the director just before starting his surgery. While Dr. Tenma and Eva are having dinner at a restaurant, Dr. Tenma is still thinking about the opera singer's incident and tells Eva that he just followed the orders of the director and therefore it was not his fault. At night, the police arrive a place to investigate a crime. After arriving, they realize that it seems to be the residence of the Liebert family. When they entered the house, they are shocked to see except the little girl and the boy, their parents Mr. and Mrs. Liebert have been murdered. The girl and the boy are quickly taken to the hospital as the boy has been shot in the head and the girl is in shock. Dr. Tenma receives an emergency call about that incident and quickly leaves for the hospital. When he is going to do the surgery, he is stopped and informed to give up the boy's surgery and do the mayor's. Despite the director's order, Dr. Tenma decides to do the boy's surgery. While Dr. Tenma is waiting to know the boy's situation after successfully completing a critical surgery, Dr. Boyer comes and tells him that the mayor died, and he scolds Dr. Tenma, telling him that he abandoned the team just before the mayor's surgery. Then, Dr. Tenma says that the boy was brought first and therefore he had to do his surgery. Dr. Boyer again accuses him, saying that he selfishly left the surgical team. Then the chief comes and tells Dr. Tenma that he upset the teamwork and disobeyed the director's orders. He further says that he has reported it to the director, who greatly regrets that incident. After they left, a nurse comes and tells Dr. Tenma that the boy is turning back to normal. While Dr. Tenma is relaxing, a press conference is broadcasted on TV about the mayor's death and the Liebert's murder. At the hospital, Dr. Tenma spends all day unfocusing. Dr. Becker comes and repeats what he previously said to Dr. Tenma about the rule of the hospital and so on. Meanwhile, the twin girl who was admitted to the hospital due to her mental condition is wandering around the hospital and the nurses are looking for her. Unexpectedly, Dr. Tenma is sacked from his post as the head of neurosurgery as a result of disobeying the director's orders. Eva, Tenma's fiancée, also ignores him, telling him that he is a fool, and throws her engaging ring away in front of him and goes with another man. Dr. Tenma visits the boy who is still recovering and thanks him, saying that he is the one who opened his eyes, and says that he threw everything away to operate on him. Dr. Tenma is dismissed as the boy's doctor and without his permission. The siblings are happen to meet each other. As a result, the girl screams after seeing her brother. Meanwhile, the chief and the director have been killed for no reason. The next day morning, the police arrive at Dr. Tenma's place to investigate the deaths of the director Heinemann, chief of surgery Dr. Oppenheim and Dr. Boyer. After hearing it, Dr. Tenma is shocked and quickly runs to the hospital. There, he gets another bad news. A nurse tells him that they cannot find the twin sister and the brother anywhere at the hospital. Then he checks the room of the boy and it is empty. Meanwhile, the funeral ceremony of the director, Dr. Heinemann, is held with respect at the cemetery. Eva, the director's daughter, sobs begging for her father. When Dr. Tenma is coming out from the cemetery, he encounters a police officer, Detective Visbal. He thanks Dr. Tenma for his efforts and introduces him the Inspector Lunge. The inspector praises Dr. Tenma's brilliance and talent as a surgeon. Tenma then asks if he has any idea where the children are. Inspector then tells him not to worry about them and claims that they found a nitrate-type poison in the dead bodies and says that they could find the same candy wrapper beside each body and also the same candy was found in their stomachs. The inspector then asks Tenma if he has any idea where the three of them might get a hold of something like that. Dr. Tenma replies that he does not know anything about that and again asks about the twins. Inspector then tells him not to worry about it as they have taken over the investigation just after the murder of Mr. and Mrs. Liebert. He further states that there can be a possibility of political terrorism behind all of these cases and says that the two siblings might be holding a major clue. After Dr. Tenma left the police officers, the inspector tells the detective officer that before the incident, the director removed Dr. Tenma from his position as the chief and the director's daughter broke off her engagement to him. Then the detective officer says that Dr. Tenma was in a bar drinking at the time of the incident. Dr. Tenma thinks that the police are coming after him because there is enough evidence for him to be a suspect. He thinks of going back to Japan, his motherland, once everything is settled. He came to Germany to do his research but now he is very tired. At the hospital, while Dr. Tenma is examining a patient, he requests Dr. Tenma not to leave the hospital. Meanwhile, the hospital board is discussing the empty posts of the hospital authority. After the meeting, Dr. Tenma is once again appointed as the chief of surgery. But now he is not happy about his reappointment. Meanwhile, Eva meets Tenma after a short break and congratulates him on his appointment. She then says that she wants to be with him again despite the things that happened between them. But he leaves silently without responding to her. 9 years later, Dr. Tenma is still doing his job as the chief of surgery. The inspector with his team is investigating a crime. At a night, a man meets with a car accident and is brought to the hospital. Dr. Tenma quickly comes to the hospital to treat the patient. There, he meets Inspector Lunge after 9 years. The inspector talks about Dr. Tenma's reappointment as the chief of surgery. He further tells him that all the cases he has ever handled have been solved successfully. He says it as a hint to Tenma. Dr. Tenma visits the patient who met with an accident and asks him if he can recognize him. The patient replies, "The monster is coming." Then the inspector comes and asks the patient about some murders, presenting him with some information about them. After a few seconds, the patient begins to scream. Then the inspector stops his questioning saying that he will come again another day and says that he will place a guard to watch him closely. He then tells Dr. Tenma that all kinds of troubles seem to happen around him. Tenma then angrily asks him what it means. Then the inspector tells him that he was just joking and then leaves. The next day, when Dr. Tenma tries to take the patient out, a guard stops him and asks where he is carrying the patient without permission. He then tells the guard that he is just going out to the garden. In the garden, Tenma shares his life story with the patient. The patient also shares about himself with Tenma and begins to cry, saying that all of his associates were killed. At the night, after deciding to tell everything he knows, the patient calls the guard. As the guard did not respond to him, he goes out to see what has happened. Then he sees the dead body of the guard. Meanwhile, Dr. Tenma comes to the hospital to meet the patient and sees the dead body of the guard. He then quickly goes to the patient's room and sees it is empty. He then runs to look for the patient and after coming to a strange place, he hears the patient's voice. He warns Dr. Tenma not to come towards him and says that there is the man who killed his associates. Despite the warning, he reaches him and sees a strange man standing in front of him. The unknown man recognizes Dr. Tenma and tells him that he is the one who saved his life 9 years ago. Then Tenma recognizes him as Johan, the boy of the twins that he treated 9 years ago, and he is surprised to see him after such a long time like that. The patient once again warns Dr. Tenma to run. Johan then pulls out a pistol and points it at the patient. Tenma begs him to stop it, reminding him of his childhood and how he saved his life. The boy says that Johan is not his real name. He then tells Dr. Tenma he heard about his appointment and he is glad about that. Tenma asks him what he wants. The boy replies him he is there because the director, chief of surgery, and the chief died. Then Tenma realizes that it is this boy who killed them. While Tenma is thinking about that, the boy shoots the patient and leaves. After that incident, Tenma meets the inspector. Inspector then reveals that the boy is the one who hired Junkers and 2 others to kill the 4 middle-aged couples. A girl named Nina Fortner is running fast to attend the class. By that time, the teacher is waiting for the students' answers to a question. But nobody answers. Once Nina enters the classroom, the teacher tells her that it seems her part-time pizza delivery job was awfully busy today and asks her a question before she sits down. She correctly answers that question. Nina has been under the guidance of a counselor as she had been experiencing a scary dream of a monster appearing out of the darkness. She visits her doctor and tells him that now she is fine. In the classroom, when Nina is answering a question, she suddenly begins to shiver and loses her eyesight for a while. After that incident, she says to one of her friends that she does not remember anything before the age of 10. Meanwhile, Dr. Tenma is walking thinking about the boy Johan and his twin sister. Nina gets strange emails from an unknown person. Dr. Tenma is trying to find some information about the boy. Finally, he meets a blind old man who knows about the boy. He tells Dr. Tenma everything he knows about the boy. Then Tenma asks him about the boy's sister. The old man says that the boy told him that he would go and collect her when she turned 20. Thank you for being with us till the end of the video and stay tuned for the upcoming videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell too.